Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into why Senator Rand Paul is absolutely furious about Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats' proposed election reforms. So, what's the fuss all about? Senator Rand Paul, a staunch advocate for election integrity, has been vocal about his concerns over the proposed reforms, particularly the H.R. 1 bill. This bill, introduced by Nancy Pelosi, aims to federalize elections, shifting control from the states to Congress. According to Paul, this move could undermine the integrity of our election system. He emphasizes that a fair and trustworthy election process hinges on the verification of voters' identities, which is much more straightforward when voting is done in person. One of Paul's major criticisms of the H.R. 1 bill is its push for mail-in voting. He argues that allowing third parties to collect and deliver ballots opens the door to potential fraud and makes it harder to ensure the legitimacy of votes.
Have confidence that our elections are conducted in a fair and honest way, especially as I read about the contents of the H.R. 1 bill. And I'd like to know what your plans are to help us Kentuckians have confidence in our elections in the future.
Well, that's a good question. And, you know, a free country requires people to be confident that they're allowed to vote, that nobody's turned away, that if you're eligible, you're allowed to vote, and that your vote will be counted. And counted only once, by the way. But the thing is that in the last election, we did something extraordinary that we've never ever done before. Traditionally, people vote in person. 95% of people would show up in person. When you show up in person, it's easy to verify who you are. So imagine it's this way. You show up at your precinct, and there are 2,000 people that are registered to vote. There's a book. Your name is there, and you've seen how it works. There's a Republican and a Democrat sitting at the table. They ask you for your ID, you show it to them, you sign next to your name. It's almost impossible to vote twice, you know? It's almost impossible to impersonate someone because you show your driver's license. It works. Through the mail, if you let people collect mail, so let's say you say a left-wing or a right-wing group can go to your house and bring an application, and then go to your house and bring a ballot, and then they collect them from you, and they show up at the mailbox. If they show up at the ballot place at the election, and they have 1 million ballots, and they turn them in, it's pretty hard to know, are those 1 million valid ballots? It's hard to verify signatures. I've seen statistics saying 13 to 15% of signatures just can't be verified. It's just too hard. We aren't experts. Most of us can look and kind of think it's the same signature, but it takes experts, and not many people are expert enough to actually tell it. Now, some people have said what we ought to do is really try to get most people to vote in person. I agree with that. And if you're going to vote by absentee, maybe you should have to have an excuse. You can't come, you're ill, or you're infirm. And maybe you should still have to show a picture or write down a number from your driver's license to put in, so it's not just your signature, there's some kind of identification. I think that's a good idea. I've testified before the Kentucky legislature. I testified before the Kentucky House and the Kentucky Senate on an election integrity reform bill. Elections have always historically been at the state level. The Constitution says the time, place, and manner of the elections is to be determined by the states. We've never had federal elections. Even when you run for Senate or for president, it's a statewide election for federal office. If we allow it to become federalized, there's a great danger that it will become more politicized. Nancy Pelosi, a partisan, a very frank partisan, has introduced H.R. 1. It's an election bill, but it says elections won't be conducted by the states anymore. They'll be conducted by Congress. They'll all be mail-in votes. Everybody will be eligible. You don't have to register. And I think it'll be something that would lead to a great deal of less confidence. It'll lead to a great deal of potential fraud if we do it that way. So I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. In the meantime, I have been talking to people throughout the country at the state legislative level, not just Kentucky, people in Georgia. I've spoken to the governor of Georgia. I've spoken to legislators in Arizona and in Texas. And everywhere I go and every chance I get, Ohio as well, Iowa, trying to get people to do state legislative election reform, election integrity reform. So we do need to do a better job because people need to be comfortable on both sides. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, everybody needs to be comfortable that your vote counts and that you're not being turned away. But the easiest way to do that is with in-person voting, and we should go back to where primarily people show up in person so we can make.
He believes that voting in person, where identities can be verified directly, is crucial for maintaining election integrity. Paul is also critical of the idea that federalizing elections would eliminate state oversight. He argues that states should have the power to regulate their own elections, as this decentralization helps prevent widespread fraud and increases confidence in the results. In response to these concerns, Paul advocates for election integrity reforms at the state level. He has been actively working with legislators across various states to promote measures that ensure fair and secure elections. In summary, Rand Paul believes that Pelosi's proposed reforms could compromise the integrity of our elections by making them more vulnerable to fraud and reducing public confidence in the process. He insists that the best path forward is to strengthen election laws at the state level and encourage in-person voting. That's all for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more political updates. See you next time.